It's broke, don't need a 4-heater, but you come 4 feet approach me. I'm summoning focus of Gogeta. Slight work, so imagine me chilling when folks meet up, cause my purpose.
Whoa, brother. We got to talk about Dynamite from December the 20th, 2023. An absolutely dead episode of Dynamite. Oh my goodness. You think they were having it in an empty barn. Man, it had all the energy of a funeral. I don't know what's going on with Dynamite. This has been the case for several weeks now. Maybe not in a row, but like off and on. Dynamite has just had the energy of like a well chaperoned dance. You know, it's just wow. Anyway, we're gonna talk about a couple of things here. We're gonna talk about Kenny Omega and his injury, his illness, which is probably the more appropriate term. We're gonna talk about Jericho a little bit. Probably in the body of the review. And we're going to go through this silly tournament, which is apparently near the end. And then they decided to end the Gold League, at least, in the most ridiculous way possible. Because, well, why not? I mean, when you're dealing with sports, I remember that great NFC Championship triple threat. Never mind. Let's get into Kenny Omega. So Kenny Omega, which everybody knows by now, came out, said he has diverticulitis, and he is out indefinitely. It was an interesting time. A lot of people are worried. A lot of people are scared. Of course, everybody knows that Brock Lesnar famously had diverticulitis, and it essentially shortened his UFC career. It caused them to, take a lot of time off. And when you're in combat sports like that, it doesn't take long before the competition starts to catch up to you. And it essentially ended his run as being a dominant champion in UFC, or even a contender, really. He was mostly a special attraction after the whole diverticulitis thing. So, because Brock Lesnar was probably one of the more famous people who had diverticulitis, it was mocked in the AEW video game, which, a lot of people are just now really starting to catch on with. And unfortunately, this was all tagged to Kenny Omega. People was like, oh, Kenny Omega was the guy involved with the game. So he clearly came up with the whole diverticulitis thing. And when it comes to renaming the F5 in the video game, diverticulitis. But as some people are starting to realize, it was not Kenny Omega. It was Excalibur. So Excalibur in 2015 wrote this on Twitter. I love that Cole's shoe flew off when Barack gave him the F5. It's all I could think about when he got up on the shoulders. My greatest contribution to wrestling might be renaming the F5 to Deep Sea Diverticulitis. Hopefully that catches on like Haluva Kick or Hell of a Kick. So, it was Excalibur who came up with the idea of renaming the F5 the Deep Sea Diverticulitis. Now, no doubt, people are going to say, wait, this is a long time ago. Well, that is true. This is long before the video game came out. But if they were using that move in whatever shack they wrestle in PWG, and they were referring to it as a diverticulitis, then of course it's going to transition into the video game and being called the exact same thing. So to me, it seems like you wouldn't have named it that if you were not trying to mock Brock Lesnar. Why else would you name it the Deep Sea Diverticulitis? Why else would you do that? And there's a lot of tasteless things that came out of PWG that has been swept under the rug, like Excalibur using the N-word, and same thing with Kevin Owens and a bunch of other tasteless stuff. That's kind of been really swept under the rug. But, it's not fair to blame Kenny Omega. I know that he's in a really tough situation right now. I bet he was in a lot of pain. He's an absolute moron to wrestle with that. And I'm pretty sure he didn't know he had the illness when he wrestled Ethan Page. But imagine wrestling Ethan Page, of all people, on a random collision in a match nobody would remember if it wasn't the last singles match you were in. With an illness that could probably kill you. But I got to get this match in. Got to get this work in on Ethan Page. Are you serious? Come. And then this guy is not going anywhere in life. Like, his next big move is being stuck in the middle of the card of a pretty dead Ring of Honor show. Holy hell. I feel bad for you. But we wish Kenny Omega well here. I don't want anybody injured for too long except Natalya. And maybe Juice Robinson. I'm enjoying my Juice Robinson vacation. I'm not even going to hold you up. Okay, so Kenny Omega, we talked about that. I guess the next piece of business is we're going to, I guess, dip over a little bit to the Ring of Honor show. Mostly to Dax the Axe, the guy who left the ring to go and bother a female fan who was not paying attention, and she was instead typing or whatever on her phone. This led to a lot of people really, really acting up online when it comes to Dax Harwood's behavior. Now, I would have done a video, but I was sick. I was more sick than I am now. I'm still a little stuffy, but I was down and out, over the weekend. So I'm just going to give my opinion instead of doing something really fun. If you are a performer and that bothers you so much, you cut a promo about it, or you work it into your promo or something like that. You work it into the gimmick somehow. You don't bring a gigantic spotlight to it. It's just like one of those when Cesaro left the ring that one time to get the beach ball and he tore it up and everything. I always thought like that's levels of gotten to that you should be above. Like you should be above certain levels of gotten to. Like a fan yells something at you, you yell back, no big deal. But you should never stop what you're doing to go bother a fan because you don't think they're paying attention to what you're doing. It should be your job to entertain the people who are watching rather than trying to shame the people who are not. Because there's a lot of people who will say, well, she's paid all that money to be there. Why isn't she paying attention? It's like maybe she's just there with her boyfriend or her dad or her uncle or something like that. She doesn't have to be a wrestling fan. People get those seats, they win them in, off the radio station or something like that. We don't know why she's sitting there, and it doesn't matter. And who knows? It might have even been momentarily. She might have been tweeting, "Oh my God, I love these guys so much," and she just gets caught mid-tweet, and then here's this bald idiot. What are you doing? Why you ain't paying attention to my match? Don't you see me sweating? Look at my mustache. You ain't understanding. This is how I feed my family. It's like, get your bald ass back in the ring. What are you doing? I mean, this fool comes sliding out of the ring like a teacher. What are you doing? You're supposed to be paying attention in class. You gonna take her phone and slide it under the ring or something? She'll get it back after the show? Like, what was the point? Really, you did nothing but make yourself look stupid. What did you gain from going outside the ring shaming this young lady? What did you gain? You didn't gain a damn thing. You just made everybody look at you like you a goddamn fool. And you're a goddamn fool. I mean, I don't know. What was you going to do? Take her phone from her. Come on. You got to confiscate all the phones. Everybody who got their phone. Everybody take your phones away. Just dumbass. You dumb idiot. You big dumb idiot. You big bald dumb idiot. Come on, man. What possessed this moron to do what he did? I don't know, man. I don't even need an answer to that question. We're just going to go ahead and just say that Dax Harwood is a very sensitive man. And I can absolutely believe that because he is a very sensitive man, his feelings were hurt that this young lady was not paying attention to him. And he wanted all of her attention. But there's better ways of doing this. Again, same thing with Cesaro jumped the barricade to grab the beach ball. It's just levels of gotten to you should never really expose to the audience. There's better ways of handling that situation. Maybe if the beach ball came in your direction and you ripped it, that's one thing. But you leaving the ring to make it a point of getting rid of it, I don't know. Bringing attention to it makes you look bad, really. And then also, if you're going to do what he did, I'm talking he being Dax Harwood, there's other ways of doing it. Like I said, he could have flirted with her, could have offered her something to get her attention. I don't know. Like, Shawn Michaels would have jumped over the barricade, put his arm around her or something. Like he does shit like that. Like there's video of Shawn jumping in the crowd and sitting next to the fans and stuff like that. And they were like not, it was before cell phones clearly, but there's ways of interacting with the fans to get them to pay more attention. And what he did was a big fat fail. For starters, you live in modern world where people are looking at the birth of their grandchildren through their phone. So the idea that somebody's got their phone out should not be that big of a deal. And all the Mark idiot fans who are defending it, please give yourselves a wedgie. Go find the nearest chalkboard and write on it that I will stop being a dork. Wrestling is not that important. I will stop being a dork. Wrestling is not that important. Stop defending everything these moron wrestlers do, please. You don't have to defend them. I swear to God, you don't. All right, let's get into this goofy ass show. Swerve Strickland defeated Roosh. Good match. Roosh kicked out of a 450 splash at 1. Just because he can. Now, Roosh didn't complain about this one. In fact, they was bickering at each other on Twitter, and it seems like they've wrestled before. So maybe Roosh had a little bit more respect for Swerve. Because he actually didn't kick out at 3.1, nor did he, pop back up after the fall. So he probably liked Swerve a little bit. So Swerve Strickland ended up being tied with the leaderboard when it comes to the C2, the Continental Classic. Then we got the battle for pride, the 0 versus 0. Mark Briscoe versus Jay Lethal in a match that was 2 months long. Man, this match was like Casablanca long. This was like Alexander. How many people have watched Alexander? Man, you need forget popcorn. You need a time clock to watch that movie. It was like Once Upon a Time in America. Jesus Christ. I watched that movie in sections. You got to watch it in like 40-minute blocks or something like that, like a television show. You can't sit and watch that whole thing at once. It's crazy. And that's how I feel about this match. This match was a whole bowl of nothing. 2 guys who ain't going nowhere. This stuff don't mean anything. They could have gotten in the ring, one clothesline the other one, and just went down and pinned them, and that'd have been it. Nobody would have given a shit. We got to go out there and fight for our pride. Isn't every match about pride? The other 4 matches you weren't in were worried about your pride. This one is about pride, though, because I lost all those other ones. Get out of here. And then I saw that Mark Briscoe, God bless the guy, he tried to come up with a good reason why he's, lost all of these matches so far. And he said that I'm in my rookie year as a solo wrestler. And that might work on anybody who didn't know that this fool been wrestling for more than 20 years. His brother used to be the world champion, so that means he spent a lot of time as a singles wrestler. Just like the first singles matches that you ever been in, brother. Come on, man. And then the weirdest thing is, he goes and says some shit like this where Jay Lethal was a former Ring of Honor world champion. This ain't Jay Lethal's first rodeo as a singles act. Why he lose every match in the tournament? How did you manage to lose every single match in the tournament? Oof. Jesus Christ. Maybe now we can get a break from Jay Lethal. I don't know, man. I feel bad for him now. A lot of people was very happy to see him when he first came over. I was like, okay, well, he's a good acquisition. He's a good hand. I didn't know they was going to do this to him, for Christ's sake. He went through this entire tournament, didn't even sniff a win. He didn't even get anywhere near a believable victory. Him and Mark Briscoe, oh my God, God bless them. They went out there and was chopping each other hard like this was for a world title or something. This literally meant nothing. If there was any match that you were going to go out there and absolutely fart and shit through, this would have been it. This would not. I don't know how long this match was. It was entirely too long. But this was like War and Peace as far as I'm concerned. This meant nothing to nobody, and it just went on forever. I wish it did not, but it did. Mark Briscoe won, by the way, because of course he did. So MJF, he was inducted into the National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame, which I'm not against it, but he's 28 or something like that, right? Like, he's not even 30. How is he a Hall of Fame Jewish performer? Like, not even wrestler, but like athlete in general. How? Already? Isn't like being put in like a Hall of Fame, especially for like, are you telling me there are like no Jewish athletes and you really were struggling to find some Jewish athletes to put into your Hall of Fame? Because I'm pretty sure if I, really looked, I could probably find some. Jeez Louise. But, good on him. Good on the kid. Wardlow says the clock is ticking. It's always been a battle versus good and evil, but MJF's world will end. The world will see him broken, and he's going to bring the devil to his knees. Look, Wardlow, I don't understand what you're waiting for. I don't care. Tony Khan has absolutely just destroyed this young man. Poor Wardlow. It's very unfortunate. I don't care about Wardlow. I don't care about this at all anymore. Who cares? MJF and Samoa Joe, they had an interesting situation. Samoa Joe says, once again, I come seeking answers. And he starts talking about how there's footage of everybody getting their asses kicked by the devil and their goons, except MJF, where everything looked so well put together as MJF just lay there with the belts and the glass and everything. So MJF calls him No-Show Joe because he was supposed to protect him, and says that he knows that the goons never actually attacked Samoa Joe. So then he says he doesn't trust Samoa Joe, doesn't like Samoa Joe, doesn't understand why they're waiting for World's End. So he starts taking off his jacket and everything like he's going to fight Samoa Joe. I mean, that's just not believable. It's not believable at all. This guy is just in a huge rush to fight Samoa Joe. Okay. Anyway, there's tons of goons. They're like putties from Power Rangers. They have no face, and they're all nondescript. And they start jumping the barricades because they're trying to attack MJF and Samoa Joe. They make no physical contact. Instead, get thrown around all over the place. And so then the devil pops up on the screen, says, where can you go? Who can you trust? Will you accept our challenge for the ROH Tag Team Championships or something to that effect? MJF thinks that Samoa Joe is going to say no. So he's going to try to sell Joe on it when Joe accepts. So now they're going to finally have the match that they pump faked last week, or was it 2 weeks ago that they pump faked this match? So apparently they're finally going to have this match. And I'm less interested now than I was before, if we're being honest. So that wasn't the end for MJF, however, because him and Samoa Joe got into an argument again backstage. And MJF leaves. He walks away from Samoa Joe because he's going to do what he do. And he ends up finding a mask laying on the ground and finds it outside of the Mogul Embassy locker room. So he knocks on the door, knock, 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 and Prince Nana opens the door. MJF grabs him, starts accosting Prince Nana when Swerve comes out there and confronts MJF. So Swerve says that MJF has been ducking him, reminded them that they used to travel together, what MJF did, and then said that he was not ducking Swerve, that there's levels to this, and Swerve just ain't on his level. So then Swerve says, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that we used to ride together. You was my chauffeur, some of the best sleep I ever got. Then he said, remember you was telling William Regal about that tryout that you didn't get? And then he says, well, you get tryouts. I got a contract. MJF says, take out your hand-me-down Flavor Flav grill when you talking to me. Says, oh, you hate Hangman, right? Why wouldn't you frame Hangman for attacking me? why wouldn't you attack him? So then he suggested that Swerve is the devil. At this point, Swerve gets into MJF's face. They go back and forth. Swerve says something about the world title and wanting to beat up MJF or something to that effect. When Samoa Joe reappears and basically snatches MJF from the scene, and it looked like they were going to get jumped by the Mogul Embassy before that happened. And they just wanted to put Swerve and MJF on the screen at the same time to tease MJF versus Swerve, and I was good with that. I like Swerve. MJF when he's on, he's on. A little too jokey. They play off a lot of the history between the two of them. Guys who worked together for a long time on the independents, that kind of thing. The audience energy for it, I don't think was there. Like, maybe it was just the building, maybe it was the town. I don't know. The people still like Swerve; they really into him. But I don't know if the people were just like, or maybe it was because it was a backstage segment and not an in-ring segment. Maybe that was it. But I liked how they put it together. I like that, MJF just found a random mask. And look, Swerve wears shiesty masks all the time. I mean, that was part of his character for a long time. I think it's only been recently that he stopped wearing them. But he wears like shiesties all the time. So it was never like I got you. I got a clue. It was like, nah. Swerve wears a mask all the damn time. Like, you can probably find entrances from like 3 or 4 weeks ago with him wearing a mask. So it's not that big a deal. And, why in the world would they need to wear masks to jump you? Everybody knows that the Mogul Embassy jumps people. That's what they do. That's the thing about it being Swerve that doesn't make sense. Because it's like, if it's going to be somebody who is jumping people, it has to be a reason why they're covering their faces. Like a good stable would, they jump people already anyway. So why would they be hiding their faces? It really doesn't do anybody any good. I'm starting to think it's Pac now, though. And so that's where I'm going with this. So I like the MJF Swerve thing. That was good. They did a segment with best friends backstage with Rocky Romero, who's one of the most useless sons of bitches on planet Earth. And he's going to end up wrestling Orange Cassidy, and I couldn't have cared less. Don't give a good goddamn less. How did I skip Chris Jericho already? Oh, sorry. All right, so Jericho did the formal announcement that the tag team title match will likely not be happening, even though he didn't say it's not happening, because it's not happening. He's just said kind of like it was in jeopardy or whatever, and that he says that he wanted Omega to get healthy. He's going to stay there and get ready for him. He did Kenny Omega's outro, the goodbye, good night, bang, mwah, whatever, arrivederci, whatever the hell he says. And basically just being Clout Vampire Chris Jericho, which is, of course, the usual. Now he's doing Kenny Omega stuff. And it's interesting because poor Chris Jericho, man, he's been getting a lot of hatred. And since AEW started, really, he of course, he got roasted by, NBA Twitter, and, Cornette and several of those kinds of guys been letting Jericho have it lately. And he has been sitting around. He's been listening. He heard you. So he goes on Chris Van Vliet, not Van Vliet, like fish fillet, but Van Vliet, and he says, "If I died tomorrow, everyone would say I'm one of the greatest of all time. I think it's because I'm still here, still doing it at the highest of levels. There's a lot of people online that just hate that. There's a lot of Chris Jericho haters right now. It's kind of in vogue to hate Chris Jericho for whatever reason. And once again, I've never cared. I mean, sometimes it gets to you, but I only judge myself. I am still able to have the best match on the show on any given night. Yes, not every night, but on any given night. Am I still doing entertaining segments and having great matches and thinking of ideas and building the company and help build others? Yes." So he's basically saying, in maybe roundabout way, that just because he is older doesn't mean he still doesn't have something to offer. And that is always true. It is always true that just because you're not in your physical prime anymore, that you still have something to offer as a talent. The issue here is it's been a while since Jericho has done something of substance. And I mean something of real substance. And I mean really elevated people. He's been in 3 or 4 different factions and nobody has come out of them better. You know, people have said, look, who has feuded with Jericho and come out better on the other side? Like, that's a legitimate criticism. You know, it's a legitimate criticism. Like, you really have to ask that question. Like, who works with Jericho and then comes out better on the other side? I mean, Kenny Omega works with Chris Jericho now. He's got diverticulitis. Jesus. It's not working out for nobody at this point. But that doesn't mean that Jericho sucks or that, even though I don't think Jericho's doing the best that he can do, he certainly isn't in his physical prime or in his creative prime. But, I mean, if you run off Jericho, then you got nothing. You got no real connective tissue between people who wanted to watch, who gave this show a chance because Jericho was on it. And believe it or not, there are people who are watching this show because Jericho is on it. He gave a certain level of credibility to this audience. Now, maybe he is no longer needed in that role because Danielson is there now and Claudio is there now and Adam Cole's there and, you know, all the Ring of Honor guys have come over. So maybe they figure, hey, we don't really need this guy anymore. But ultimately, Jericho, to me, is still a very talented performer. And I still enjoy watching him when he's doing something good. It's just unfortunate that he's never doing anything good. Like, it's, you know, like, if he was, like, I enjoyed the thing he was doing with Sammy Guevara that went nowhere. And now it's over because Sammy left or got concussion. And then Sammy left because he, you know, his wife had a baby. So I was enjoying that little tit for tat thing he was doing with Sammy Guevara. That was 4 years in the making. It felt like they were finally moving Guevara, even though I don't like Sammy Guevara, but they felt like they were finally moving him forward. He was finally going to get out from under Chris Jericho's wing, and then bad stuff happened to him. That's not, you know, it's not Jericho's fault. You know, I don't think Jericho's the one who gave Sammy Guevara a concussion. He ain't the one who got Ty Mello pregnant and then she, you know, popped up with this baby. They ain't his fault. What happens is not Jericho's fault. You know, Tony Khan is the booker. Okay, like that's what it boils down to. If you feud with Jericho and then you fall off afterwards, it's not a Chris Jericho problem. That's a Tony Khan problem. All right. So we can blame Jericho for not being his best, you know, and maybe being a little too boastful, being a little too in the bag for AEW, which I will criticize him for. You know, he's a company guy. He's a little bit of a stooge. But I'm not going to say I hate Chris Jericho. I'll never hate Chris Jericho. No. A lot of people who do hate Chris Jericho right now, though, a lot of them hate him because they think he's a Christian, Republican, conservative, or whatever. It's all political. It ain't got nothing to do with what he does on the screen. It's what they think about him as a person. And, you know, people think that because you check a certain box once every 4 years or whatever, that all of a sudden this means that you eat babies or some nonsense. It's like, come on, get over it and grow up. But that's just kind of how the world works right now. So, Chris Jericho, don't let him get to you. You know, you're still awesome. You're less awesome than you were 30 years ago, but then again, aren't we all? I feel less awesome every time I wake up in the morning. But I'm still glad to be here, though. Anyway, what's left on this crappy show? Okay, Timeless Tony Storm, she appears. She's on here. She's doing commentary for Riho versus Saraya, which is legitimately one of the shittiest matches I've ever seen. If I never see Riho do another flying head scissors, it'll be too soon. Saraya, not good. Question, was she ever good, really? I love that people are now really starting to ask the question about what's going on with Riho. Why is there so much love for Riho? And the question is starting to come out. And it's weird how it took so long, because some people have been asking that question for a long time. But now, you know, I saw certain wrestling journalists like, what does Tony Khan see in Riho? Why does she keep getting put in these opportunities? The better story was Saraya versus Tony. It's like, look, Saraya cannot take bumps. Did you see this match? she was wrestling like a rookie because she can't take bumps. She can't do it. It's not in her DNA no more. It's over for her. I don't know why she continues to want to wrestle. You know, I don't even understand that, but I don't understand wrestlers who want to continue wrestling despite having a broken neck or whatever. Anyway, I mean, Saraya is basically made out of paper mache. Why does she continue wants to do this? I don't know. Is the money really worth it, or it's like she wants to do it, but she kind of doesn't. She's still scared of doing it. She's skittish about doing it, and you could tell in the matches that she's skittish about doing it. And she did my least favorite thing of all time is that she was waiting for spots to happen, and she almost dropped Riho on her head. I saw that. She got no upper body strength. In any event, Riho was not going to be the person who was going to hurt Saraya because I don't think she could have. She didn't have enough body weight really to hurt her, and maybe Saraya's neck, as pitiful as it is, probably could have survived a full blow from Riho, shot from a cannon right into her neck. She probably would have been fine. Anyway, after the match, Toni Storm gets into the ring and she uses some opera glasses to look at Riho and then got beat up. I don't even understand what that was about. And then Mariah May hit Riho in the head with the belt to save her, which of course is basically just telling us, Mariah May is going to be looking out for Toni Storm. That's fine. Ruby Soho was smiling backstage when Saraya lost. I guess they're done. That's great. So the Outcasts are over just like that? Okay. So Riho got her revenge on 2/3 of the Outcasts, and now she's going to fight Toni Storm for the title and to get her ultimate revenge and hopefully not win that. But you never know. You never, ever know. This is a mess, and having Riho versus Toni Storm at World's End is real dumb. But it's AEW, and their fans are into that kind of thing. Tony Schiavone read a statement from Christian, that essentially says that he's on vacation with his new son Nick Wayne, and that he's going to address Edge's challenge to him for the TNT title, and why things happened the way they did on Collision. So that brings us back to Collision, which I saw a clip of Edge challenging Christian for the TNT title. I think he wants to have some kind of no disqualification shindig. Okay. I wish they hadn't given. Well, whatever. It is what it is, man. They really have done a piss poor job of filling out the story after Edge and Christian had their match. They're letting this feud cool off. They really are, because they started something with Nick Wayne's mama. Everybody shit all over it, and then instead of trying to save it or even trying to move away from it, they just decided we're just gonna stop everything for 2 weeks. We're gonna go away from it for 2 weeks. That's that Walking Dead storytelling. When in the later years they would do something and then they go away from the characters for like 3 weeks. You'd be like, oh, fuck you. All right, main event. Roderick Strong. Well, not main event, but on the card. Roderick Strong defeated Commander. After the match, the Kingdom was posting signs saying that MJF is the devil. And then when asked about it, he yells, Renee, my best friend Samoa, Max, and he just goes on and on, but basically saying the same thing, that MJF is the devil and all signs lead to MJF, etc. He's coming across like a kook, which is not terrible, but it's not great either. But there is a lot going on in this AEW, I guess you could say. So we're going to talk about this because I wanted to talk about this tweet, but I forgot about it until just now. So we're going to talk about this Dave Meltzer tweet about there's not there's not an issue with the stories in AEW. There's too many. So Dave Meltzer is on Twitter. He's arguing with some guy. The guy says AEW is in need of a complete reboot. The product needs to be character and story driven and not chasing 5-star matches from Dave Meltzer. And he at Dave Meltzer. He says, have faith in Tony Khan and AEW. It's just time to adapt. Meltzer says, do you people really believe this? Man, you learned from deluded people. The product's problem is too many stories, not too few, as the average fan can't keep up with so many. I am floored that he would make this determination that there are too many stories in AEW right now. I don't get this. 90% of the show is tournament matches. And Dave Meltzer has says that there's too many stories going on. People can't keep up with all of the stories involved in AEW. What are these stories, by the way? So another guy says, tell us the stories, Mr. Wrestling Expert. Jack Perry being the Max Man, Moxley and Swerve, the shitty women's division. So Meltzer says, last night, Andrade and Miro long build. Sky Blue turn after long build. Acclaimed and Billy back after Mask Guys. Strong setting up bout with Commander. Rosa returning after 1 year. FTR and House of Black long build. Lee versus Swerve. Mariah and Storm long term. And build to last week's matches like final week of the tight sports race in Continental Classic, which is a short build. People who say no stories must not watch at all. And of course, this got a lot of attention and a lot of positivity, but nobody asked the question, Mr. Meltzer, do you realize that stories have a beginning, middle, and end? If somebody tells you that there is a story brewing, that has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, so let's go through these one at a time, just the ones that he mentioned. Andrade and Miro. Okay, this does have build. It started with Miro wanting to beat up anybody that his wife manages. Andrade is a guy that his wife is managing. But he cannot beat up Andrade right now because Andrade is in this tournament, and if you interfere, he will lose his job. Okay, that is a story. So that's one for Meltzer. Sky Blue turn after long build. All right, so this is actually a point for Meltzer too, because the whole thing about Julia Hart spitting in Sky Blue's face was supposed to turn her heel, but it didn't turn her heel immediately. It turned her heel months later, I guess. I guess she did finally turn heel eventually. So, because now she's teaming with Julia Hart, but there was no explanation about why she's turning heel now rather than turning heel before. Why was she fighting Julia Hart before and now siding with Julia Hart? See, that's where the whole beginning, middle, and end part of the story comes from. We got the beginning part, which is Julia Hart spitting in Sky Blue's face. We got that part. The middle is where we kind of, there was no real reason why Sky Blue was fighting Julia Hart outside of you spit in my face, which of course that's the reason to fight. But now they're friends. Why are they friends? I don't understand why they're friends. But I guess it's the story, I guess. The Acclaimed and Billy are back after the Mask Guys. Okay, I guess it folds into the MJF story mostly. It's just a side plot to the MJF story, not really a story in and of itself. And these guys were gone so long, most people probably would have forgot about that. Okay. Roderick Strong setting up a bout with Commander. That's not a story. That's an event. That happened. What's the beginning, middle, and end of that? Hey, I'm going to yell at you, Commander! And then that's the segment. And now we're going to go, is that a story? Whatever. Rosa returning after 1 year. Okay. So I guess the story of her return was that she showed up in a backstage segment on Dynamite 8 months ago or something like that. She then proceeded to do nothing and not even be seen on television. And then she, I think, jumped out of the crowd on Collision in a random segment that had nothing to do with her. And now she's back. Where's that middle part? Okay, she returned, quote unquote, meaning that she was seen on television after not being seen on television. Then she went back to not being seen on television, and now she's back again. That's not a story. I'm sorry, you failed. FTR versus House of Black long build. Okay, This is actually true. The House of Black is trying to entice FTR to join them. That is a story. Okay, it has a beginning and a middle. It hasn't had an end yet. Mariah May and Tony Storm, yes, that is a story. It has a beginning and a middle. And along in the build to the last week's matches, like the final week of a tight sports race, in which, okay, so he's talking about this Continental Classic. Well, the Continental Classic is eating up 80 or 90% of the show. So the stories in the tournament are pretty much the major stories of the show outside of MJF and Samoa Joe and what they got going on here. The idea that there's too many stories and then you notice some things that are not even stories or things that are so shoddily written that it wouldn't count as a story. You wouldn't buy that book. You know, you wouldn't watch that movie. You know, like that's the thing here. Like when you start something, it has to have an inciting event. That's writing 101. Something has to happen to get people interested in where you're going. When you have a stupid inciting event, people just go along with the story and they just want to get it over with. It's stupid. That's like saying, yes, the Booker T Edge shampoo commercial thing was a great story. No, it was an inciting event where two guys argued about this thing, which was dumb. Chris Jericho spilled coffee. Was it? He spilled hot coffee on Kane. Like these are not major events that are going to make you any money. These are not things that people are going to have problems following. All right. Oh my God, I'm overwhelmed with stories. I can't watch this show. There's too many stories. There's too much going on. Nobody has ever said that about an AEW show. There's just too many stories. Some people have said that it's maybe schizophrenic where, you know, things don't always follow. But nobody has ever said, I never heard that about any wrestling show ever. I've never heard that about any show ever. There's too much going on. There's too many angles. There's too many stories. There's never too many stories, brother. I can tell you this, though. The problem is likely, I was watching this wrestling show. Two guys got in this here ring and they were doing their thing, which is fine. I like watching the fights. But then it just seems to go on. And then I went to the refrigerator and got me some juice. And I sat down and they were still going. And they went to commercial and it came back and these guys were still fighting. 15, 20 minutes later, these guys are still fighting. So I changed the channel. I tell you, like, you can't get, no. The problem is not there's too many stories. The problem is your show is boring. That's the problem. And Meltzer, my God, this guy is still running defense for Tony Khan. He's still running defense for him. And here's the thing, when he was criticized for his shitty list, he says the argument was no stories, which was provably false. There are tons of stories. Whether they are good or bad is a matter of taste and what the fan engagement metrics tell you is working or not. That was his excuse. Oh, they're bad stories. They're shitty stories. They're poorly put together. But they're stories. It's like half of that shit didn't even make sense. Like, what are you talking about? See, this is why AEW struggles, man. Instead of just saying, you know what, yeah, they don't have anything compelling going on. There's nothing great. The tournament idea was a solid idea. The fan base, the hardcore fan base, the niche fan base really liked that idea. But it's proven to not really draw, and it creates a very dry product. That would be somebody who was telling the truth. Even if you like the tournament, you still can't like the environment. You still cannot look at the environment of the show and say that it has the same punch and energy that it had 2 or 3 years ago. You can't say that. You'll just be lying. And now you're saying that people are tuning out. They're not watching because there's too many stories. There's too many stories going on, guys. That's just a lie. It's just a lie. You know, like, it's sad too, man. You don't have to run interference for these guys. You see, these are the worst kinds of lies. The lies you don't have to tell. there are certain lies that you gotta tell. You know, Tony Khan is one of those guys. Like, he lies, but he's gotta lie. Whenever somebody tells you we're having a run of great shows, we're having some of the best shows we've ever had, he's selling the shows. He wants you to watch them. He's not going to say, well, these shows are shit. Sorry, I'm putting out some of the worst product I've ever put out. Sorry, guys. He has to lie. He's got to. It's his product. He's got to lie. But what's Meltzer's reason for lying? Why does he care whether people enjoy this shit or not? He's supposed to be an independent, unbiased journalist for the most part. Or even if he wanted to be slanted, he still should not just be straight up lying and creating this argument that I've never heard anywhere ever. Oh, people stop watching Raw because there's entirely too many stories. Instead of just saying, look, maybe the stories are there, but the characters aren't engaging, or they're not compelling, or people are just not interested in the stories that they are telling, or the stories that they're trying to tell, or whatever the case may be. My thing is, the tournament is eating up the show. That's the problem. If you're not interested in the tournament, then it's going to be hard to watch the show because it's 80% tournament matches. If you want to watch the MJF segment to see the who done it, you're just going to watch the clips. Because trying to watch this stuff live, you're going to get buried in forever match. Fight forever. Guys just go out there. Both of them heels. Fight forever. Both of them baby faces. Fight forever. It's like, oh my God. There's only so much of that shit you can watch. There's only so much of that shit you can deal with, man. Like, so, but Meltzer's hilarious. He's a hilarious guy, man. He's a joke. But let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys for your time. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa, if you are so inclined. I don't know what the Jewish holidays are around this time, or the Muslim holidays, but if you follow those, good for you. That's why they try to get you with the happy holidays thing, but we still do Christmas around here. I got asked, literally, this is like a sidebar. I got asked 8 times, you celebrate Christmas? I'm like, what? When do people stop celebrating Christmas? I don't ever remember anybody asking me that question ever until now. I'm 39 years old. Nobody ever asked me if I celebrated Christmas before. And now people are like, do you celebrate Christmas? And I'm just sitting back saying to myself, like, there are people walking around here among us who don't celebrate Christmas. That's a new one. That's a cultural issue, though, but we'll talk about that some other time. All right. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.